Mr. Jimmy, are you with us now? Please speak. Let's know if we can hear you.
Yes, can you hear me now?
Perfect. Thank you so much. Okay, so
All
sir, the
right.
question is to you as well. What is the biggest execution gap holding back young African professionals today?
Yeah, I just go with what she said and has a lot to do with ownership. By virtue of what I do, I also work with a number of younger people, and I've observed that it is something that I wish we could just have an app for and plug into them. I'm not sure, where that gap came from, but it is one thing that would distinguish anybody in that, generation. The fact that you are not just doing the work given to you, you have the bigger picture in mind. You are not just responsible for outputs, you are also responsible for the outcomes. You know the why for what you're doing. Because I noticed that normally people say, well, I did what they asked me to do. I've done it within the time they asked me to do it, but there's a why behind it. And so it's very critical that you have an ownership mindset. And I'll say this the last that I find that the people that embrace an ownership mindset early, what it does is that it builds capacity for them to in the future do better at whatever they choose to do. So if you're here, you're thinking about in the future, you're going to own your own business and all that. If you can't own what belongs to another, nobody's going to give you your own. Let me just stop there.
Interesting. You can clap. You can clap. Please feel free. Okay. Okay. So still on systems and the bigger picture, as it were. Let's talk about the workplace culture. I hope Mr. Jimmy Tewe is still with us because this is directed to him.
Yes, Fitz, I'm here.
Oh, thank you so much. Okay, so we know that every organization has their culture, they have their ways of doing whatever they do. So, what role does psychological safety play in sustaining performance and innovation? And how do high performing teams build trust, clarity, and accountability?
All right. I'll take it from something that just happened this weekend. So I live in the US and I did a session which is culture work for an organization just this last weekend in California. And one of the biggest feedback that I got from the founders is the fact that for the first time they were able to get their staff to be open, to be transparent, and to speak about the real issues. And one of the key things that I had to do to be able to engender that was that we had to bring a bit of authenticity, a bit of transparency from the leadership. And it's quite a bit of work. But what that did was that it was able to give people that safety because you spoke about psychological safety. Now, anybody feels unsafe is simply because they feel that there's going to be a negative repercussion for doing something. I've noticed that companies, organizations that have healthy emotional maturity are able to have tough conversations, are able to address issues faster. And what then happens is that it enables work to get done faster. So whenever you find people struggling around culture and all of that, a lot is reflective of the leadership. If the leadership is able to create an environment that allows people to be able to speak, of course, speak honorably. I'll say that to people that are younger because, again, I've seen people speak and say, I'm sharing my mind. We don't need your mind. We need what your mind is going to give us that is valuable, all right? And they're able to do that. I find that when that is in place, you can actually build a more effective work culture and people are able to speak knowing that I'm honoring the next person to me, but I know that I will be heard. And so people, you elicit a lot more engagement even at that level. I hope that has helped.
That has really helped. So, we're going to close very quickly, or very soon, rather, excuse me. But before we do that, we have a final question. So, many young Nigerians nowadays don't work in Nigeria or for Nigerians. And I have heard before now that the Nigerian workplace culture is toxic. I don't agree. I don't necessarily believe it because I haven't had toxic experiences so far. So I don't think it's for everyone. However, when we're preparing um, people, young professionals for a new Africa, it means we're looking at it on a global scale, on a Pan African scale, and of course, globally. So, how can we integrate ourselves from the Nigerian outlook to the African continent and, of course, to the rest of the world as young professionals. So I'll start with you, Mr. Jimmy Tewe, if you can still hear me.
Yes,
Okay.
I can.
Okay, so
I
how
think
do
that
young professionals transit from the Nigerian workplace mindset to an African and, of course, a global outlook?
I like the word you used, which is mindset. At least there are a few components. It includes your beliefs, your thoughts, and your emotions. But I want to, anchor more on the belief side. And what I mean by that is that I realize that your environment conditions you with or without your permission. And what happens is that if you work in what we typically call, it's not meant to be that way, the Nigerian organization, and you then go and work in a foreign organization, you find out that the mindsets are totally different. In fact, I find out that the people that have tremendous, very rapid progress in their careers, many of them have had foreign exposures. You will find that out. I mean, there are the others that, they didn't have that, but somehow, either by observation, they picked work ethics and all that. So I find out that there's a way, some the scenario is playing in my mind right now. A founder who was complaining had some Nigerians move over here to the US to work for her company. And as she said, they are working as if they're in Nigeria. I was like, what does that mean? They're in America. So, but I understand what she means, all right? So whether you like it or not, there's a conditioning that you are prone to already. But with the advent of technology, you can be in your room in Shomolu and still have a mindset that is broader. So you have to be very intentional about your exposure. One. Number two is that you have to be intentional about getting experiences beyond where you are. I like what she said earlier about apprenticeship. One of the biggest opportunities that Nigeria is not able to leverage right now is in the outsourcing space. And the reason why is because they will tell you that we've tried it before, but it failed. Oh, they told us that there's no light. That's why they cannot work. They told us that there's, too many excuses, or I have to keep following up on them. Many times it's because when you are at work, you say, oh, there's no light. Somebody understood. But somebody on the other end doesn't understand because there's always light. It's not only in heaven that there's always light. There are countries where there's always light. You get my point? So you need to understand that and be able to work with that reality. Okay? So I would say that be intentional about the shaping of your mind. And let me say this because I realize there's a lot of younger people here today. Everything you expose yourself to is shaping your mind, either shaping it for advancement or shaping it for retrogression. A lot of overindulgence in social media is making people dull. You have to be very careful about certain skits you watch. They make you unintelligent, particularly when you laugh a lot at them. I'm sure you know what I'm talking about. I'm sure your brain doesn't know the difference. Your brain begins to adjust and accommodates things that it should not accommodate. And what happens is that that's the same brain you take to the office and you will expose yourselves. So be intentional about what you expose your mind to because it's shaping your beliefs and ultimately your mindset at the end of the day.